Good morning, everybody. Hope you're all well. My name is David Jones. I'm going to walk through the Hopton FP&A solution for you. Just our safe harbor statement there. Okay, who are we? Well, we've been around since 2021, focusing on BI solutions, primarily with Power BI, Microsoft Power BI. We've delivered over 57 projects across 23 clients, and we use the agile method of delivery, which means we work with yourselves very closely and keep you front and center. We recently took on the pyramid analytics solution for larger enterprise clients. There's six of us in the company now. We will be seven. We're recruiting at the moment, and we've worked for over 40 years in the IT industry. So Hopton FP&A is based on Aimplan, which allows data to be imported from your business system, your ERP system usually, and it takes that data straight through either once a day or a few times every hour, depending on what you want to do there. Typically, clients don't have their budgets or forecasts in the ERP system. Some do, but it's unusual. It's usually in spreadsheets, so we can bring that data in as well. We then merge that data together to produce forecasts based on P&L and balance sheet and other bits and bobs that we'll show you as we go through the presentation itself. What makes this solution unique is that, unlike most Power BI solutions, we can write back data, which means that we can actually update the plan and the forecasts on the fly. As you can see here, for instance, you go in and we're able to update the data. So it's not like a normal Power BI spreadsheet or table. We do have the ability to do write back. And that write back is very important if you're looking at the data and you go, "Ooh, hang on, I made a mistake there," or "that figure looks too low, we should be increasing it because we've got better sales." So we're not writing back to the ERP system or to your spreadsheet, we're writing back to Azure. The reason for that is simple. Most ERPs don't have multiple forecasts or multiple budget columns. So there's nowhere to put the data once we wrote it back. So we can store that in Azure and we can then use that as part of our reporting. So we never write back to the ERP system. It means we've got two sources of data. In effect, we've got the ERP system and we have the Azure database for forecasts and budgets. We can also pull other data in if we wanted to, and that could come from another spreadsheet, another ERP system or set of tables, or it could be from Power BI itself. So what this gives us is a very accurate and timely forecasting methodology. We're consolidating data from multiple sources, and Aimplan is streamlining that for us in terms of the reporting process itself. It's very accurate because we're picking up data from the ERP, from the sources. So there's no worry about time delay in somebody rekeying something or them adding an issue or an error. For your end of month reporting, that can be very confident then because your figures will be produced very quickly. We can also handle things like internal write back for costs. So if one department costs another or charges another department, we can catch all of those and eliminate them if we want to. It also means that when we're looking at the system here, we're looking at what the business does now, not what the ERP system was configured 15, 20 years ago. And that's important because businesses do change. And sometimes the ERP system doesn't reflect that. And that's what gives a lot of companies a lot of time to have to redo the data itself. We can have multiple companies in different currencies. That's not a problem at all. We can handle staffing costs and revenue based on drivers. So the cost of something could be based, the cost of a department could be based on floor space if it's something, or it could be based on quantities of products being sold out the door. In terms of demand planning, we can manage the process, which is what BI is very good at, of forecasting what sales are going to be based on what's been there before. So the driver for that is usually the customer by product, by rep, by solution, by product, whatever it's going to be. Since we can change the values, if we found that we underestimated our sales at the start of the year, we can change that and audit track that to make sure that nobody looks at the old original data. We can also put in comments. We could say, well, we know now we've got a new customer. They're going to buy lots of these off us. Therefore, the product's going to be sold more. Therefore, our figures are going to be higher. That all gets reflected back into the P&L. So the idea being here that you're working with your different teams in the business. They're doing their part, and their influence drives into the P&L forecast. We can also manage projects, so that can be capital projects within ourselves, or it can be client projects. Again, the driver for that can be time and the different parts that we're using, or the time of people allocating themselves. We can also update things like planning and budgeting, so we can tell the customer we're going to be on time or a little bit over, a little bit under, based on the forecast of what we're doing. If we're doing client projects, we can also manage the billing part of that and reflect that in things like project milestones. All the way along, because we're using Power BI, we have a full set of KPIs and data reporting. Each of these is basically driven by yourselves as to what you want to see. We can also pull narrative reporting, which basically means that the narrative that we produce is based on the forecast and the actual. So if we're under budget, we can have a comment saying that. If we're at budget, same. And if we're over budget, we can put some sort of explanation as to why we are. Let's have a quick look at the FP&A solution then. Right, so this is our Aimplan dashboard, if you like, the start of the dashboard. Just to give you an idea as to how the figures could look, if we look at, say, a P&L there, for instance, that hasn't been Hoptonized, if you like, that's a typical Excel pivot table. Yeah, we all recognize that. We're using maybe the first two characters of the account code as the pivot, and we're doing it by month. So that by month gives a bit of a structure to it, but not a huge amount. The cost, the totals are going to be just by the pivot table. So that gives a total for our costs, a total for these fellows through all the way down. Okay, it's not very structured, not very easy to use. We go to our version of this. It looks a lot better, doesn't it? It's a lot cleaner. We have the accounts in a better structure. We've got more detail behind them. And we are subtotaling, and our grand totaling is far better. We've also broken into quarters. So we've got the 4 quarters across here, and a total for the whole year down that side. So it looks a lot easier to use and a lot easier to move around. We also have the ability to pick different companies or different years, different products, or different cost centers. All right? So if I pick, say, Malmo, for instance, which I think is still there. Where have we gone? Come on. Malmo, there we are. It'll just look at the Malmo figures rather than just the whole company itself. All right. So straight away, you can know this is actually a lot easier to use. If we then skip on to the next page, the profit and loss versus plan, now we're bringing in the actual smart ERP system, which are updated daily, if not sooner than that. There's our plan, which we pulled in, and you'll see where they come from in a second. And then we got our delta, what the difference is. Okay, again, we got it by quarter. So that gives us an idea as to what we're looking at there. I look at some of the simple KPIs. Obviously, we're using Power BI, so we can drive as many KPIs as we want out of here. So we can make this very, very easy to use, very simple to use, and also departmentalize. So maybe there's going to be one for the cost people or different departments within those. Again, we have the selection here, and we have the year. Look at cost forecast, for instance. Here we have the actual plan, which is our figures that we've imported probably from the spreadsheet right at the start of the year. So again, we can change these figures around. So if we said subcontractor engineering, the actual last year's cost was 39 grand. Our plan is a little bit lower than that. So let's make that figure a bit better. So if I go in here and say, make that say 30 grand. All right. Store that, and straight away it's used that as a ratio to work out what the figures are there. Again, if we wanted to split that out by even, figures that all should be 2.5 grand. There we are. All right. So very quickly, we're not using Excel here, but we're able to use a lot of the Excel ideas and models. But the main thing is it's being written back to the audit trail. So if I go and look at the audit trail, for instance, we'll see all the different movements that have happened there. There we are. We would have had the ability there, though I didn't do it, to put in comments to say why is it changed. All right. So this gives us a row, gives an idea of what's going on. So it helps you track any changes that have happened on the system itself. If I look at our revenue, for instance, we can see our charts as to what our revenue is going to be. And again, this is based on the actual figures coming in from your ERP system and the budgets coming in and forecasts being calculated. In this case, the driver for that is based on the product quantities. So I'm looking at the quantity for, say, the HP solution there. If I make that, say, 200 rather than 300 rather than 94, we'll see that it'll be stored and changed, and the figures get changed all the way along. All right. So we have the ability to open this up, this budget and forecasting method, open this up to the different teams that are involved. So the sales managers, sales team can be doing their figures. The cost people can be doing their costs, and they all then drive into the P&L. Same with the projects here. If you've got a project team, they could be looking at this and saying, right, there's our project, there's our costs that we're going to be incurring, and it gives us the ability then to say, well, maybe that 50 grand and make that one 30 grand. So the figures aren't going to change as a total, but the breakdown's better. Oh, hang on, I missed a zero. It's better. Okay, so it gives the ability to change these figures, manage them, and this is company-wide. So if you've got approval to see these figures, then you have the ability to see what the figures are now, the current figures themselves. Okay. Again, for employees' hours, you might say, right, I want to see all the different employees and what their number of hours is going to be, because that's going to be the cost of those, and that's going to reflect in our P&L. So again, I could go in here and say, Fran, for instance, is only going to work 20 hours. Maybe they've got the holidays, they're only going to work 30 hours in February. Yeah. And again, that reflects the changes and also reflects in the cost and the P&L. And because we're Power BI, we can look at utilization, we can see different projects that are going on, we can see what the structure is, and these can be geared towards your own requirements themselves. Okay, that's our project APIs, and that's pretty much it. The rest of these are just about the structure. There's our revenue for reps. Sorry, that's quite useful, that one there. And then we've got a couple of items which just give us the hierarchy of the accounts, and there's one for projects as well here. There you go. All right. So that's a quick demo of the product itself. We've had a few questions coming in. Let me just see what we've got here. Does Hopton FP&A work with other ERPs besides BC? Yes, it does. Yeah. So we've got this linked up to Business Central here at the moment. Doesn't have to be. It could be Sage, it could be Xero, it could be Accounts IQ, whatever you fancy yourself. All we need to do is pull the actual figures in and have a link to the actual system. And then the budgets and forecasts, we import that once, and then you use this to manage the budget and forecast going ahead. So yeah, absolutely can go across pretty much everything. Business Central, obviously F&O as well if you wanted to. What's the minimum number of users? Minimum number of users is 5. So 1 administrator who manages the system, and then 4 extra users. And that gives you people in sales, cost, projects, all the different teams you want to use. So it is a collaborative tool, and therefore you'd expect it to have more than just 1 user, which is good. Are there any limit to the number of companies? No, we haven't found one yet, so I don't believe there is. How long does it take to implement? We're typically talking about 3 or 4 days for this. Obviously, it depends on how many KPIs you want us to write. There are some out of the box which we obviously can use, so it depends. But 3 or 4 days, so it's not a mad project at all. It's not a big capital project. Can I handle multi-currency? Yes. I don't know if you saw it there, but the companies themselves, some were in different currencies. So yes, you can have multiple currencies as well. And then the final question here: is there a limit to the amount of forecast you can have? No. I would suggest you probably end up with 1 per month. So 12 per year, but you don't have to. You can have 1 per quarter as well, whatever you fancy. If you have any other questions, by the way, just drop an email and I'll look after them straight away. So in summary then, we've got a system that merges your operational data, your financial data, and your forecast data into one Power BI tool. And it is leveraging the power, or leveraging the power of Power BI. It's built from scratch, so it reflects how your company is now, not how it was when your ERP system was set up. And that's important. I've had clients who've had a system for 15 years, and the company now does not reflect how the start of accounts, even, for instance, was set up then. It's a collaborative tool, so it's designed for users across the company to do their bit, and that then gets reflected in the financial system itself. We can add comments, we can have full change control, and we have version control. So that gives us a lot of management in terms of being able to make sure the data you're looking at is viable and is correct. Sits on Azure. It's a totally cloud solution. You don't have to buy a server or do anything weird anymore for that kind of stuff. And it also leverages AI and machine learning as well. It was possible, though I forgot to show it to you, the ability to search on a figure and say, base the new forecast based on the figures that were there already, or last year's figures or whatever. It's not that expensive. There are tools out there that cost a lot. This is not an expensive tool. So, okay. So to learn more, have a look at our Hopton website. We've got a full working example of how the product looks there, though you can't write back. That's okay. You get the idea, I think, at this stage. Or give myself or Simon a ping or an email or a phone call and see how we can help you there. All right. That's it. I hope that you enjoyed that. Good to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll talk again. Thank you. Bye-bye.